Hi there, this is Morgan with Morgan Burke's Photography and Product Shop. And today I'm going to show you how I edited this photo. I posted this a few days ago and I posted a before and after, and several people wanted to see a video on it, so I thought that I would do that today to show you how I accomplished it. So I'm going to hold down my Alt key and click my background layer so you can see the before and after. So that was the before, and this is the after. So as you can see, pretty dramatic difference. The before was one of the last photos that I took during this session. We had just lost the light, but I really liked the drama of this photo, how dark it is. I just really wanted to add some depth and kind of bring out her features and kind of add some lighting in there that increased the drama of the photo. So I'm going to hit Alt again to turn all that back on. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to turn that back off, and then I'm going to show you each one. As you can see, I used several, well, more than several, many layers. They're all from the One Fell Swoop Actions collection. So I'm going to add each one and kind of show you what they did as I go, so you can see what each action did here. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. There we go. So the first thing I did was I ran Awesome Sharpen, and I just left that over the whole photo. It kind of increased everything and really added some texture to the ground back there, so I left it. Awesome Sharpen is pretty cool because it doesn't really overly sharpen the skin, just the features. So after I ran that, I ran Subtle Sharpen because I did want to sharpen a little bit more here. So I'm going to zoom in a little more. And what I did was, after I ran Subtle Sharpen, I masked it off of her skin. I still wanted her skin to look smooth, but I did want that increased sharpening in her hair and everywhere. Lots of people have different opinions on sharpening. You're welcome to leave these steps out. If you're not a sharpener, that's totally fine. Lots of people sharpen at the end. For tutorial's sake, I sharpened at the beginning so that I don't have the sharpening actions after all of the other edits. It just, I don't know, it makes it different and difficult to see. So I did it first. I do it at the end sometimes, at the beginning sometimes. So if you don't do it this way, that's totally fine. Everybody kind of has a different method. So after I did that, I ran Natural Brighten. And this one is an action that is completely blacked out. It's a paint on action. So what I did here was I painted it over her features anywhere the light would hit. So you can kind of see where I added it. I ran some here along her neck and her collarbone, the tops of her hands where the light would hit, and even a couple of these wrinkles on her blanket here. And then again on the cheekbones a little bit, here on the chin, and slightly over here on her jawline, and then on her forehead, and especially over her eyes. I don't know if you can really, yeah, you can kind of see. So by not painting it everywhere, I was increasing the depth of her face by leaving those shadows there. It kind of makes her look a little bit more 3D. Selectively painting on the brightening is great to make the light look directional as well. So there's that. After I did that, I decided I wanted a little more brightening, so I just duplicated the layer. And by that, I just mean I clicked the Natural Brighten and dragged it down over that little sheet of paper, and then it doubled the layer. That can kind of make it look a little too much, so I changed the mask a little bit and painted a little bit over her whole face, just so it wasn't such a difference between the highlights and the shadows. I painted softly over her entire face, including the shadowed areas, just so it's still even. Hard to explain, just so there wasn't such a difference between the highlights and shadows. I didn't really want her to look like a mannequin, so I just brightened overall a little bit. I even ran some here over the whole blanket. It's kind of just up to you and depending on the photo, but I'll turn it on and off again for you to see. It's really light, just mostly over the front of her here. So I painted that on, and then as you can see, a little in her hair. So I hope that makes sense. So the next thing I did was I ran Center Focus. And I don't know if you can see that one well on here. Yeah, okay, so let me zoom out a little bit before I turn that one on for you. Just holding my Alt key to zoom out. I'm going to place this better here. There we go. Okay, so after I ran Center Focus, what it does is it kind of brightens the middle of the photo and adds a slight vignette. This one is at 41%, so I didn't use it super strong. You definitely could if you wanted, but here I just left it at 41% down low, so I didn't want the vignette to be too strong. So put it back at 41, and there we go. So the next thing I did was I needed more brightening, I felt, so I ran Luminous, and Luminous is an overall, it brightens your whole photo. So what I did was I just hit Control I to make the mask black, and then I painted more over her. So just a little more over her highlights, and then over these little wrinkles in the blanket just to add a little bit more drama. I did not do this one right away. At first I thought this was going to be enough brightening without it, so I added a few more. And then eventually I came back down below the color changing actions and just added this Luminous to give it a little more brightening. I put them in order here so you could see how it works. And I did do this, I dragged the Luminous layer below the color changing layers. If you've ever edited a photo and rearranged some layers, you'll notice that they play differently because each layer applies to what's below it. So once you put something, okay, sorry, hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself. So it affects everything below it. So if I were to lift this Luminous layer up above these other ones, it will look different than if it was below them. This is so confusing, I know, I'm sorry. But yeah, just try in your own edit, just rearrange a layer or two and just see the difference. And then you'll kind of see what I'm talking about here. So I ended up moving Luminous down below with the other brightening layers so I could have them all together, and I liked the way it looked, so I left it. Okay, sorry to get off topic there. Okay, so afterwards I ran Sunny Glow, and this one was to give some change in the color. I wanted a little bit less blue. So I ran Sunny Glow, and I left it at 100%. It's over everything. I didn't mask it off at all. That's the action. So next I wanted a little bit more warmth, so I ran Blowing Bubbles. And this is also all from the same collection. And this one adds a little bit of magenta. Excuse me. Hang on a second. I'm going to get a drink. Okay, so Blowing Bubbles warms, but also adds some magenta tones to kind of increase that sunset look. So that's why I ran that one. Okay, so after that I ran Color Enhance, and this is another paint on action. As you can see, I'll hold down my Alt key and click my mask, and you can see where I applied it. I painted the color here down on her. If I turn it off, you can kind of see. I painted some down here over the colors in the clouds. Excuse me, sorry. I swear I cough during every video. I apologize. Okay, so yeah, I ran Color Enhance there, and I'll turn that on and off for you again. It boosted kind of the shadows even a little bit too, and made the clouds look a little stormier. So that's why I ran that. Next, what I did is I ran Peach Painting, and this is another paint on action, so you just grab a white brush to paint it on. Peach Painting warms and adds a peach color wherever you paint it. So I painted that especially down here over the already peachy tones in the sky and over the mountains a little. So let me turn that on for you so you can see. Yeah, so basically I ran it over the top too to add a little bit more of that warm color up here. It was really cool up at the top. So I added a little bit over her face, some in her hair, and especially back there over the colored clouds. Okay, so next I ran Wilderness, and this one is a very magenta colored action. It was a little strong, so I turned it all the way down to 26%, and then I masked it off of her. Again, I'll show you the layer mask. So yeah, I just masked it off of her, especially off of her face and hands, and then slightly off of the blanket. So there's that. Next, there's another paint on action in this One Fell Swoop collection called Hair Lighting, and I designed this action so that you can paint it over someone's hair, and it gives the look that the sun is kind of shining through it, which is especially helpful for images like this where it's backlit and you're increasing the light, but she doesn't really have any in her hair. So I wanted to increase that a little bit, and then I discovered that hair lighting actually looked amazing over the background, so I painted that in, and it increases the light. I painted it over her blanket right here, so it shows like the sun is shining through the blanket. Painted it on a little on her face, like the sun was hitting her. A little bit here in the back of her hair. Behind her, I added some light there. I'll turn this on and off so you can see again. So I swept the light back here over the rocks, especially over here on the rocks, and then I increased this area right here where the sun is shining through. Excuse me. That way it just increases that lighting again. Like I said, I painted a little up here too, so you can kind of see where it's all painted. I hope this is as informative as I was hoping it is. I'm kind of just telling you what I did but not really showing you, and that's something different. I'm not really used to doing that. So hopefully this makes sense. I can kind of change my brush here to show you how big my brush was when I did this. Oh my goodness, I can't talk. My throat is killing me. Okay, so what I did here was I believe I had it at 20% opacity, so I just hit the 2 on my keyboard to change the opacity, and then I painted this here with a brush about this size, just kind of swept it over, and then that was at 20% opacity. Swept it down here a little bit too, over here. So with it being at 20% opacity, it's kind of light and subtle, and so then I released my mouse and did it again over the parts I wanted to be a little brighter, and so then it ended up being about 40% opacity, because you're doing 20 on top of 20. Sorry, I don't mean to turn this into a math lesson or something, but yeah, anywhere I wanted additional light, like more than other spots, I just released my mouse and did a second application. I hope that makes sense. So here, I'll hit my mask again, and you can see where I painted it. You can see that it's strongest here. I also made my brush a little smaller, painted it here along her hair, slightly on her face. Sorry, my phone is going off. I hope that makes sense and is helpful seeing the mask. But basically, I mean, I don't know if it's confusing. You can ignore this part. But basically, yeah, I just painted slightly here on her, probably at 10% opacity, very, very light, maybe even 5, I'm sorry, I wish I could remember, but something very small, because the hair lighting action also adds that kind of reddish tone to the light, and I didn't really want her face to be overly red, so I did it very lightly on her face, and then a little more in her hair, and then a lot over the background and on the ground. Ugh, I hope that makes sense. Okay. Next, I ran Boathouse. This is one of my favorite actions in the set. It's very moody and kind of muted, but it really increases the drama and the atmosphere of the photo. Gosh, I feel like I'm just throwing big words or something out here. I hope it makes sense seeing it on there. And then I found that some spots were a little too muted, so I just grabbed a black brush and painted it slightly off of her face, a little off of the blanket here, and a lot more off of the lighting in the back. So I'll hit my mask again. You can see it's kind of circular in the center. I just painted it off very lightly and then went over her a little more to make sure that she wasn't muted. I really did want her to stand out against the background. And yeah, she was muted to start out with, and I'm trying to uncover her from the darkness, so I didn't really want to put more over her. Okay, so after that, that one is at 65%. And then we'll go to the next one, and that's maps. And this is another matte action in the set, and it's got like a warming color in the shadows. And so this is something I wanted over the whole thing. Once I ran it, it reminded me of like a scene from the movie 300, you know, like that crazy drama and like the reddish tones. So I ran that, and then you can remove this with a black brush as well if you don't like the way matte looks over face and skin. I kind of liked it here, so I left it. Next, we're almost at the end, guys, I promise, sorry. So next I ran Skin Soften. I noticed that she was just looking a little, I don't know how to explain this. I really wanted her skin and her hair and the texture and stuff to kind of pop out from the background, and there was a little bit of noise because it was such a dark photo. And after brightening her up, some of that noise was increased, and I didn't want her face to look texturized. So I ran Skin Soften, and that just smooths her out a little there. I hope you can kind of see that difference there. I can zoom in a little more to show you here. So this is after I ran that, and that was, oops, sorry, that's maps, whoopsie. Okay, so that's after maps. Again, now that I'm turning that on and off, you could paint a little of that off her eyes if you wanted to. I left it, but yeah, so it depends on what you want to do. I left the matte over the whole photo, but again, you can paint some of that off if you want it. So back to Skin Soften. I just painted over her cheek a little, and this one is one that only softens the skin. It doesn't really soften like hair or anything that has a lot of texture. So I just smoothed her cheeks out there a little bit, which kind of smoothed the highlights and the shadows together and made it look a little more blended. So I liked the way that looked. Okay, so I'm going to back out now, and oops, a little more in. Okay, there we go. So last, I just thought the color was a little too red here, a little too magenta, so I ran Thoughts Awry. Again, these are all from one fell swoop. And Thoughts Awry was a little too dramatic, so I didn't want I don't know, kind of looked a little greenish to me. So I turned it down just a little bit so that it didn't look like, I don't know, tornado weather. I still wanted it to look like a sunset and have those magenta tones. So I turned it down to around 50%. And then I ended up liking it like that, and I stopped editing. So yeah, so again, that's the end of the edit. We sharpened, then we brightened. I added the center focus to kind of lighten in the middle, brightened a little bit more, and then I added the warm actions here, enhanced the colors and painted in the light with peach painting and color enhance. Then I ran wilderness for that kind of sunsetty look, and then hair lighting to increase that lighting, and then boathouse and maps to make the matte effect, and then skin soften and thoughts awry to kind of finish up anything I was noticing in the photo that I didn't really like. So I hope that makes sense and is not too overwhelming. Yeah, so there is the before again and the after. So I hope you enjoyed this kind of run through. It wasn't really a tutorial, but I hope you liked it. If you have any questions about any of the brush applications or how big to make your brush or anything like that, you can always email me at morgan@morganburks.com, and you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/morganburksphotography. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.